Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Rise Urban Nation. As you can see to my left, I got my brother from another mother, Jayton Harps. I got to recently connect with him and everything he's doing with NSBE. We're gonna be using acronyms. I'm gonna try my best to let you know what these acronyms mean. So before we get into the interview, Jay, why don't you tell them what the acronyms NSBE stand for?
Yes. Thank you, Tayel. So that acronym stands for National Society of Black Engineers.
All right. And how long has this organization been around for?
Oh man, this organization's been around for over 40 years. It's about to be 50 years in a second. So yeah.
Wow, that's a long time. And I couldn't think of any better interview to kick us off on this MLK holiday. Um, and we're gonna get into Jay his career and everything he's been doing with NSBE, the new president. Congrats, sir.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it, man. Appreciate it.
I know you're gonna take it to new heights. Um, uh, Let me try to refresh the people my memory as well as the people's memory. Like, how did we meet up? Like, because I want to say we met before that meeting of our dear friend Ryan getting us together. But was there another meeting before that? Did we meet before that, or was that the first meeting?
I think that was the first meeting because I think yeah, when he grouped us all together, I just remember I was like, man, Tyrell, man, he's in it. Like he's helping people with entrepreneurs. And I think during that time, that's when I was really trying to really start my own business, and just really
Uh-huh.
understanding like, who to connect with and how to get to that next level. And I've always just made an effort to just make sure we stayed in contact. And then,
Yeah.
then life
And to
happened.
give people some context, my brother Ryan Bill, he's my Rise brother, Rise San Diego, about cohort 3. Me and him was in that cohort together, and then we just, been friends ever since. Shout out to Ryan too. He just recently got married. I
Right,
don't know if you
man.
yeah, I don't know if you do this. He got married last year.
Yo, I was surprised too. I was like, man, you got married too? I think he got married before I got married. I was like, oh man.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, man, okay.
Look, all this COVID love happening. All this COVID love. uh,
Oh my goodness.
eh, give you some backstory to Rise Urban Nation. I always like to tell people, I started this podcast in the pandemic as well, and this has been one of my love stories during the pandemic, just because I couldn't get out there and speak to youth, and during that time frame when I was speaking to youth, I used to have hear young people and they have all these limiting beliefs about who they could be, what they could do, right?
Hmm.
And then as I started getting to my diversity, equity, inclusion career, and working with different individuals, I realized adults have that same thing too, like limiting
Yeah.
beliefs of what they could do and who they could be. Because we'll often see people in different spaces, whether it be engineers, entrepreneurs, like, wait, there's a black person doing that? Like,
Hmm.
nah, really? Well, they're probably the only one, and they can only be one of us. And I like to share people's journeys and stories like yourself, because I want this to be the new norm of the conversation that we have. Like, we see so much of us just doing amazing thing in different spaces that it's not an anomaly anymore. It's not like, oh, that could be the only one, or the best route for me is to go play ball or be a rapper. Like, nah, you could be an engineer.
Right. That's right. You can. Absolutely.
Like, so how did you get into engineering? Give me that backstory, because I don't think I've ever gotten that story. Like, how did you? I find it hard to believe that, and maybe this could be your story, that you just automatically in high school said, you know what, I'm gonna be an engineer. How did you get into engineering?
Yeah, for the longest, I didn't know what an engineer was, to be quite frank. When I was growing up, right, I was a huge gamer, huge gamer. I'm
Mhm.
talking back to the Nintendo days. You know what I mean? Like I had every video
Yeah.
game system you could think of when I was growing up. So as I was growing up, I just knew I wanted to be a video game designer. That was one of my dreams. And an even bigger dream, I wanted to be the CEO of PlayStation. I had huge aspirations when I was growing up because I was so in love
Okay.
with what I wanted to do. And so once I got into like middle school, like high school area, that's when I started deciding. I'm like, okay, I know I want to get pursue higher education. My dad, he had a master's degree. My mom, she did some college. So education was always a part of my life, right? And so I was like, okay, well, what major? I don't even know what majors these video game designers or people, what do they do? And I was reading the magazine Game Informer. So it's the video game
Hmm.
magazines that are out there talking about the upcoming video games and news. And the journalists, all of them said they had computer science majors, right? So they all of them said computer
Mm.
science. And I was like, okay, so let me go pursue that degree. And then I took it a step further. I was like, well, if I get a job, like I don't want to get laid off or nothing like that. So I read those, those futuristic articles, right? The top 10
Yeah.
majors that'll be in demand for the next decade. Now we're talking like this is like 2006, 2007. And I read an article and computer science was the top three. And I mean, even right now, computer
Uh,
science is still in demand. Like it's going to forever
yeah.
be in demand as we're getting more technical. They're always going to need, software developers and stuff like that. And so I picked the right major. So, and then it was the school. I had two schools in mind. One was
Hmm.
Howard University. Can you believe I got accepted by
Hey,
Howard?
you.
Man, the only problem with that was they wanted me to redo my SAT scores.
Ah.
They said it wasn't high enough. They were like, yo, man, like to make our class a little bit stronger, you got to redo your SATs. I'm like, I mean, around this time, it's like March of 2007,
Yeah.
So I was like, man. And then at the same time, I got accepted at San Diego State University, no issues or nothing. And I was
Yeah.
like, you know what? I'm going to pursue San Diego State. I went on campus, fell in love with it, with the tacos
Yeah.
and all that good stuff. And so, yeah, so I got accepted there. I went there. And then once I
Uh-huh.
started going to San Diego State, I always told myself, like, the first couple years, I'm just gonna focus on my studies, right? I want to get my GPA
Hmm.
solid because I was coming in San Diego State and like a 3.6 GPA, right? So I was like, all right, cool. Again, education was my thing. And
Yeah.
so that first year I did pretty well, I would say, B's and C's and stuff. And then that second year, I was like, okay, I need to get involved with something, right? I have to get involved, in order to get this experience. And
Hmm.
so at San Diego State, they always do the first week of school. They always have like a welcome week. All these different student organizations, and one of them was specifically for Black organizations, right? And I was like, that's what I
Okay.
want to be at. You know what I mean? I'm
Yeah.
Black, like I want to be with my folks. You know what I mean? So um, I attended that meeting. I mean, there was so many organizations, with the fraternities, the sororities, Black this, African Student Union, all that stuff. And then I met, Brian Ware, right?
Yeah.
Shout out to B. Brian was the first person that I met in NSBE, and he was the president at the time. He's like, "Hey, how you doing? My name's Brian. I'm the president of NSBE." I was like, "What's NSBE?" Right? He's like, "Oh, Black engineers." It's like Black engineers. I've never heard of an engineer before up to that point.
Yeah.
And then once he was like, yeah, come through. We have a meeting on this day. We got free food. He sold me on the food. So when I was like, all right, free food, you already know, as a college student, man, I was trying to get as much free stuff as possible. So I was like, hey, I'm there. And I went to the meetings, and it was just so cool. Like everybody there, was pretty, I don't know, they were just engaged, and it wasn't too
Hmm.
many of us either. I would say it was like maybe like 10, 12 people. So I was a big introvert. So I didn't really
Yeah.
want to like be around a whole bunch of people anyways. I didn't know a lot of people and stuff. And but yeah, I just stuck with NSBE. And then the thing that really transformed me into like being all NSBE was the national convention. And that was in 2009 in March in Las Vegas. Las
Okay.
Vegas, Nevada. And when I went there, oh man, I mean, there was thousands of us just pursuing degrees and workshops. And I've never seen to that magnitude in my life of just gifted young Black folks, getting it. And I was like, man, I'm never going to leave this organization. So that was my first time learning about NSBE. and for sure learning about an engineer.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. I had that same experience after like I think it was a startup grind event that Luis had put together. Then he started doing We the Plug, and he got all these different black entrepreneurs together. And I was like, wait, uh, I didn't know there was this many black entrepreneurs in the San Diego region.
Right, big time.
I mean, some of them came down from LA, but it was a beautiful thing to learn about their journey and so forth. So I can only understand how that experience was for you. Uh, now, like during that experience, did you tinker in entrepreneurship at all, or like how did you? Because I know you always had this pull towards entrepreneurship. Like, where did that come from? That pull towards entrepreneurship.
Yeah, definitely. While I was in Nesby, I didn't, obviously I was into like the working side, right? I was like, man, I got to be a great
Yeah.
worker and do all this cool stuff. And then entrepreneurship didn't really start coming to me until I want to say like after I graduated from college. But at the
Mm,
time, we would have NSBE Professionals, right? So
mhm,
like who I am right now, right? People that are actually in the industry working and stuff like that. And I want to shout out to him, man, Grady Gordon, man. Like he really told me about entrepreneurship. And he would also express that at his NSBE professional meetings, right? Talking about, hey,
right.
not only just have a job, but create a job and stuff like that, and entrepreneurship and and
Mhm,
home ownership and stuff like that. And I was just like, man, like, entrepreneurship. I thought at the time, it was hard. Like I was like, man, you got to create your own business, and what does that really mean, and all that stuff. And
mhm,
I kind of I would really just I was kind of going through that journey of like, what does it mean to be an entrepreneur? What does that look
mhm.
like? And so I would always like to see examples, right? I always like to replicate. I don't like to reinvent the wheel sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And one of my biggest motivations was my grandmother. Rest her soul. Her name is
Uh-huh.
Florida Lewis, and she passed away back in 2017. But I want to say around the year 2015 time frame. That's when like my entrepreneurship awakening started happening because I
Yeah,
was going through some tough times at my job, and I was like, man, like anything could happen. I just need to just be ready. I need to be ready. And so one of the things that I would do, and that's how I kind of eventually met Ryan, right? Like was
yeah,
through because he was an entrepreneurship and stuff like that. And then he would tell me like to read some books, the art of the sell and art of something. It was some art of something, right? And but I would just
yeah,
read about entrepreneurs and read about capital and scaling and marketing and sales of that nature. And then I was just like, man, okay, this is some good stuff. And then eventually, um, you know, man, I can go into so many ways with that, but that was my beginning of entrepreneurship was just planting that seed in my head, like, hey, you need to have something because
mhm.
you need to learn how to do it because if you're depending on a job, then you can't really survive out here. So yeah.
Yeah. And I'll take one step further. Some of the things I seen you do with Nesby, in my time of just being around you is very entrepreneurial like in itself with these events and how you set up the mail list and all that stuff.
Mhm.
Like I'm always in awe of like the new and then even the I think you did the hop in one time where
Yep.
you're using technology to bring people together with these events. So
Hmm.
I was like, oh man, what is this hop in thing? Like and I was like, okay, they pivoting and they making things work out here, even in the middle of a pandemic. So
Hmm.
I appreciated some of that. Um, I'm gonna take it a little bit back. We can take it way back into
Hmm.
time
Right, 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 right. Let's
to,
do
to to give some more context to the storyline. Because I always like to show people like the beginning to the growth because it's not where it's not where you start. It's kind of like how you. It's about the journey and how you finish, right?
right.
And some people believe sometimes that like, oh, I after I graduate, I got to get that first premium job. But sometimes you might have to stick it out as an admin to get to where you need to
Hmm.
get to, and then not everybody gets the ideal first job all the time. So, what was your first job? like your very first job. Not talk about job out of college, but
All
your
right.
very first job. And what are some things you think you probably learned that you still carry today from that experience?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Man, my first job was man, I was definitely in high school. It was my last year. I was a senior.
Uh-huh.
And at that time, because my parents, they're not together. They had a divorce, right, when I was super
Mm-hmm.
young. And so, as I got older, especially in high school, I wanted to experience, everything, prom, grad night, all that stuff. But I also wanted to help my mom too, right? With being a single mother, and so I was like, you know what, mom, I'm gonna make sure that that you're good and I'm good too, right? So
Yeah.
I'm gonna go and get a job, man. Like we can't. I'm not about to miss out on nothing. I don't want us. I
Yeah.
don't want you to have to stress about it. So
We ain't missing no meals around here.
none, zero. And so my first gig was at Stater Brothers. It's a grocery store. Just like the
Oh,
yeah,
I
just
would have never guessed that. Go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah, just like the Vons and all that stuff. And it was cool because where I lived at in Corona. So Corona's not too far from like Riverside. It's at the IE, the Inland Empire. And
Yeah. I don't know why I thought you grew up down here in San Diego. Oh, okay. This is the
no,
first time I
yeah,
okay.
no, I'm not even from San Diego. That's the funny part. People think that, but I lived in San Diego for so long. You know, um,
Yeah, you the next Mr. 619 around here, the way you be running the city. So that's why I just thought you was from down here.
no, no, man, I'm not from down there at all. And so, yeah, so when I was growing up in Corona, there was literally the Stater Brothers was literally like a block away from our apartment, right?
Uh,
And it was literally like around like the beginning of the year of 2007. I'm gonna say like January, February, and I just went in there like how do I apply? He's like, all right, just fill this out, and then we'll contact you, right? I was like, all right, cool.
mhm.
Like literally a few days later, they called me, right? This is when we didn't have cell phones like that, right? Like I didn't even really have a cell phone, so they called my house, right? I was like, oh man, like who's that? It's like, oh Jay, it's somebody from Stater Brothers. And then they're like, yeah, we want to sign you up for an interview. And then I went up in there. I was like, I don't know. I think it was pretty lax, just as far as the
Yeah,
process. And they're like, yeah, so you will be working. And because I told them, I was like, hey, I'm still going to school. Like I'm not 18 yet, so
yeah,
I didn't really know much of what I could do. And they're like, all right,
mhm,
well, we'll just have you just be they call it the courtesy clerk, right? And this is the
yeah,
person that's go over there, bag the groceries, right, for the people, push the carts out and, do the sweeps and, the mops and all that stuff. So that was my first gig. That was my first gig I've ever had. And I was only there for about 3 months because, at that time, that's when I got accepted at San Diego State. So I told them, I was like,
yeah.
hey, I'm not going to be here long. I got to go down to school. And they're like, well, you always have a job here when you come back, right? Hey, I told my mom and my sister that they started dying. They're like, "Oh my God, Jay, man, you ain't never going back."
Look, you like when I come, I ain't never coming back. And several years later, like he ain't coming back. It's funny you telling that story. And you talking about the phones. I remember having a aha experience in one of the classrooms when I was telling the students about the payphones. Where I had to use a payphone one time to do something. It's like a payphone. Oh, I think I remember seeing that in one of the museums or something. I was like, whoa, are we that old now? Like,
Wow, it's in the museum. That's when you know, man. It's wow.
I was like, man, I ain't know we old enough to have stuff that was in our like in our lifetime in the museum.
Oh, right. Yeah. Even recorders, right? Tape recorders and cassettes. Like those are for sure in
Yeah.
museums now. Like wow. Whew. Wow, we telling our
I was
age for
like, man, I
real.
don't know how I feel like that. Like, but
Oh man.
all right. So all right. So what are some things you think you probably learned from that first job, if any? Because I know it was a short lived experience that you probably carried through, to the next stage of developing your career and life and so forth.
Yeah, I think it was just I think it was really just reinforcing that, to serve, like I think that part really, um, let me know like it's okay to serve whoever, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying like, you know, being like a slave or anything, but I'm saying like
Yeah,
literally
yeah,
like
yeah,
taking action to help somebody, you know, especially, you know,
yeah.
as we all know today's, you know, Martin Luther King, you know, it's not a, you know, it's not a
Mm-hmm,
day off, you know, it's a day on, you know, we continue
mm-hmm,
to serve. And, you know, I think I really learned about that about myself. And, you know, a little quick story about that, right? I grew up in a church, and
yeah.
I don't go to church as much as I used to, but the values are still there within me. And one of the things, what I was when I was growing up, because you know I was born out in um, like not too far from like Long Beach, Lakewood, right,
Uh-huh.
Lakewood area. And my parents, we would always go to church in out here in LA, and it's called Unity Missionary Baptist Church. And this church, it taught me a lot of my values, like as far as like being a
Mm-hmm,
public speaker, like speak in front of an audience, speak to the back of the room. Um, and then also they would have these people called ushers, right?
mm-hmm,
And ushers literally are to serve the church, serve the people in the church. And
mm-hmm.
I was an usher. You know, my dad was an usher, my mom was an usher, and we would always serve the people in the church. So for me, like I think that's why I'm such a giving person, is that I'm always willing to go and above and beyond in my actions.
Mm.
And to me that shows how much I care and love about whoever it is or who I'm serving. And
Yeah.
so doing that, you know, having that grocery job, you know, it was like, man, I can start from here, right? But that doesn't
Mm-hmm,
make me any less than who I am, right? And
mm-hmm,
I always just stuck that value within myself. And you know, some of the things I learned, and especially now that it's the year 2022, it's like, you know, things change, and we're always going to be in a position that we may not feel as valued, but you
mm-hmm.
know, but people will always need our help no matter where we are. So I learned
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I love that. I love that because I mean, literally, you're adding value no matter where you go because you're a person of value. You're a person of character. Man, so I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Look at this young brother from Stater Brothers to S.t.e.a.m Brothers in engineering. What? I'm about to
Absolutely.
coin that. uh, so now walk me
Uh,
through the journey because I know you. I going back to where you were talking about, I was like, I read the magazines. I saw computer science was the thing to be,
mhm.
top futuristic careers. Like, now walk me through the steps of like how you really got into your career. Like, now, what would you consider your career engineering, or like, are you still like looking at it from a computer science angle? Like, I don't. Uh, what do you consider your career, and then walk me through like the steps you took to kind of to get into your career and then and into business.
Yeah. So I consider myself, man, like definitely a business engineer, right? Like it's maybe that's the
Ooh.
first time I'm gonna coin that, business engineer, because it's like because at first, again, like I didn't know what an engineer was, right?
Uh-huh.
And so once I got the job at Northrop Grumman, which is a huge defense company out here, you know, they're with the Lockheed Martins, Boeings, I mean,
Yeah, they up there.
Raytheons, yeah, you know, GA, you name it. So and even and it's so funny because, you know, at that time, when I went to their interview, because I got an interview. Like, man, I'm gonna be shouting out a lot to NSBE, y'all, because I swear NSBE really transformed me a lot in many ways. And so
Yeah.
when I was at San Diego State, I became the president for the NSBE chapter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that year, I mean, you guys, I was, man, I would you wouldn't expect it, but I had a below 2.5 GPA. You know, I was working two jobs. You know, one working for CC's Pizza. You know, all these little, cutting up pizzas in the back. Then I was also working on campus at San Diego State at the little convenience store called Aztec Markets. It was a
Mm-hmm.
grind, and you know, because my grades had faltered, I had no job openings, you know, for me. I did have an internship at s.t.e.a.m, which is
Mm-hmm.
another defense company. I got that through NSBE. That's a whole nother story. But I just
Mm-hmm.
knew like that last year, I was like, man, I gotta make it work because I'm not trying to go back to Corona, you know, because the one thing about Corona, it kind of smells over there, right? With cows and all that.
Mm,
I ain't trying to go back to the cows. All right, I'm good with
nah.
that. I like the beef. And so, so with NSBE, they would have again these national conventions, and that year it was in Indianapolis, Indiana.
Mhm,
And my mentor, shout out to Miss Shirley D, she told me about Northrop Grumman. And because
mhm,
I was like, the video game thing doesn't work out, then what about this whole, flying drones? And, I just thought that was
mhm,
really cool because, again, I'm a futuristic kind of thinker, right? I like to see the future.
mhm,
And I was like, man, that would be really cool to do something like that, like Battleship and stuff, right? And she's like, well,
yeah.
Northrop Grumman is in that industry, Jay. So I was like, okay, cool. So I got an interview at the national convention. They followed up with me a couple months later at a phone call, killed that. Then 2 weeks later, they had an in-person interview with me, and there was about 5 managers, killed that. And yeah, and I thought that was it. That was the end of the day. And then,
Mm,
so once August came, they called me up. It was a New York number, and they were like, is this Jayton Harps? I said yes. They're like, hey, this is so and so from Northrop Grumman. We wanted to know if you're interested in the position. I said, yeah. You know what I mean? Like it
mm,
was the only offer I had. It was a software engineering position, right? And
mhm,
so I was like, okay, what does that entail? And they said like the description of like, you have to design, you have to, do procedures, and all that stuff is like an engineer, right? And because I didn't really know what an engineer really is, right? And
mhm,
so when I went at work at Northrop Grumman, I mean, I had some really great mentors, and I mean, I still work at Northrop, but I'm saying like the people that I met inside there, they're retired now,
mhm,
but they would just tell me about the process. They would always
mhm,
explain like the process, like it has to work this way, right? And then how to maneuver around, if it doesn't work right, right? Just have these little,
mhm.
how to be a problem solver, which I didn't
Yeah.
know was helping me mentally becoming an entrepreneur, because entrepreneurs are problem solvers, right? They figure
Mhm,
out ways to go around an issue or to solve a bigger cause, a problem. So
mhm,
I think I was developing my mindset of being an entrepreneur, and they would call it an entrepreneur, right? You would be an
mhm,
entrepreneur at work or wherever you're working at. And then
mhm,
once I kind of figured out, okay, how to process my mind and how to work around it, how to take notes, right? A lot of people don't want to document how they, go through the process or to troubleshoot, right? And to make things a lot faster. So I would kind of train myself and learn those things as I was going through it. And then the business side came, right? I was like, man, like,
mhm.
how do they run their business? Like how do I see that there's all these different pieces, everybody's moving in different directions. And that's when I
Mhm.
knew like it doesn't always have to fall on you. Like you can be the one expert, but you don't have to run everything. That's why you
Yeah.
have to depend upon people to do that, like to really rise up and to ensure that the vision is heard. And so
Mhm,
I think my business acumen started happening during my early years at Northrop Grumman. And then once I want to become like a business person, I was like, man, I
mhm,
still need to learn, what does that really mean? And so that's why I would talk to people like Ryan. I would listen to podcasts, like something like this, or even it's
mhm.
called how I built this. I forgot what that guy's name is, but
Ooh, I'm about
um
to add that to my collection. How
yeah,
I
how I
built
built
this.
this. I mean, this dude, he is from NPR, right? The NPR
Uh-huh.
folks. He would interview pretty much all these successful entrepreneurs, right? And,
Yeah.
and and again, just telling their story. How did they get to where they're at now? To making millions and billions of dollars. And all of them has some type of, an event that happened or something that was in the way, but they would always find a way to make it happen and to make it work. And so I would
Yeah.
always read stories. I would always figure out, okay, this is what it really takes to become a business owner, of being an entrepreneur.
Mhm,
You have to put in the hours. You gotta find ways to be creative, And so yeah, so I would say that's who I really am, and that's how I, becoming an engineer, and then now a businessman, a business person, and a business family man, right? Because now it's
mhm.
like I'm married, and so this is a whole nother dynamic that I was always trying to
Yeah.
train myself is, how can I pursue the things that I want and still have a family too, because I don't want it to just be one way or the other. Because I've seen what
Mhm.
happens. Families gets broken apart, and the only person that really gets affected are the kids.
Yeah.
He says, I know there's a quote that says, when the elephants fight, it's the grass that suffers, right? And
Mm.
and I would always keep in mind about that. Like, man, I don't want my grass to suffer. I don't want to go
Yeah.
into a battle with my spouse or anybody that I really care about, to
Mhm.
to um to leave chaos behind. And
Right.
so, but yeah, so I
I
know
love
that's
that. I
pretty
love
long
that.
winded.
No, no, that was beautiful. That's a beautiful. And I think I'm gonna steal that business engineering from you because like you said, entrepreneurs just creative problem solvers. And you
Yep.
know what I realized from talking to you too, that you engineers have a leg up on this in process and systems and figuring things out because that is a very great skill to have as an entrepreneur.
Yep.
So like um, you know, some people inherently have it, some people don't. But like if you're an engineer, it's ingrained in you, right?
Hmm.
It's part of your DNA. So you just take that wonderful piece of your DNA and it fits so perfectly into that space and world
Hmm.
because you just naturally gravitate towards it, right? Because
Right.
it's something you studied and you lived and you worked and you breathe it, right?
Hmm.
So I love that. I love that. Uh, what's one good lesson life has taught you?
Oh man. One life, man, life has taught me a lot. I would say definitely, no matter what's happening, man, just keep things will get better. Things
Okay.
will get better. I mean, every time when I'm always down, like I just always explain it, just my backstory as far as like, my parents were divorced. I thought I was a terrible time in my life, right? And I'll never forget it. But
Mhm.
it crafted me, like bad things are supposed to happen, how we see it, right? It's all about our perception
Mhm.
of how we view the situation. And it can even make us better or make us worse, right?
Mhm.
And I always want to choose the former to make myself better by being self improved upon, to be well rounded in any way aspect possible, right? So when that happened, I would learn. I learned at that moment. I was like, man, I would never want to get a divorce, right? Never. And I would do whatever
Mhm.
it takes not to get a divorce, right? So I would study what is it that married couple, even my grandparents, they were married for over 40 years. What was it that they did in order to stay intact with each other? And even the ones that are
Mhm.
divorced, what is it that happened that made you guys separate? Right? And
Mhm.
one of the things was always time. Didn't have enough time for the family, didn't have enough time for this and that. And so I would learn about my time management. And I think that's why I'm a stickler in time, because I was like, man, you can't replicate time. It's going. It's always
Mhm.
going forward. So, we can and Martin Luther King would say this too, in one of his
Mhm.
speeches. He says time can be used constructively or deconstructively, right? So how we
Mhm.
use our time is how, the situation will become better or worse.
Mhm.
And so, for
Yeah.
me, it was during that time, that time frame when I was going through it, at my college years of, failing and not, getting the grades that I thought I would get, because obviously, I came from a background of education, so anything less than a B, I mean, you get your butt whooped. You know what I mean? Like, man, you're done, Jay. You're done. And I would strive for excellence, but then that broke down my character, right? That reshaped
Mhm.
my thought process. What does success really looks like? Is it really the grades? Or is it the person that really put in the work, to figure out how to get it done? And I would rather have
Mhm.
that person than straight A people, because now you're building your character, your own values.
Mm.
And in
Love
speaking of
that.
values, like I learned to better my own value. What does my values even look like? I had an ex at
Mhm.
the time, she didn't really know my values. She didn't appreciate myself or whoever, because I wanted to meet her parents and she didn't want me to meet them. And I was like, man, like, am I worthless? You know what I mean? Like, I have a job, I have a place and I
Mhm.
own property. I do all this stuff and I can't meet your parents. You know what I mean? I was like,
Mhm.
what am I doing wrong? Right. So I would always self replicate myself. Like, what is it that
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing and what can I do to make myself better? So one of the things I
Mm-hmm.
would do is, again, I'll go back to reading books. I would read, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I will
Mm-hmm.
understand, okay, what is it that I want to do with myself? How can I be more effective as a communicator? What do I want to look at the end of my life when I look at that casket and it's me? People around,
Yeah.
what is it that people want to remember about me? And
Yeah.
so I would always stress that about my vision. And then I always stress about, just improving upon myself, make myself better, not having excuses. I do not like having excuses, and I'm also in a fraternity too, Beta Gamma Nu. It's multicultural. And one of my
Mm-hmm.
frat brothers would always say, an excuse is just another way to say to not get it done. And I was like, man,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get it done. I don't want to give excuses. I want to give out any promises because I just know I can do it. I can do it. But yeah, things will get better. Things
Right.
can get better. And every lesson is a life lesson for me, whether it's
I
good
love
or
that.
bad. So that's one of the things
You
I've
know,
learned so far in
things
life.
can get better.
Hmm.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Love it. There's a lot of inspiration and truth in that, and sometimes hard to hear truth. Like,
Hmm.
I remember being on a interview but it was last week or so, and then somebody said, a gentleman said, my wife said to me one time, honey, you are in this situation because you choose to be in this situation. And it
Yep.
was some hard truth, right? Because
Hmm.
like the decisions I made was a choice that led me to where I'm at. And all I had to do was choose to approach it differently
Right.
to get a new outcome, right? Or
Hmm.
choose a new process to
Right.
to improve the outcome of where I was at.
Because we all have choices. That's the crazy part about it. We all have choices, and anything that happens is because of a choice that we made. Anything that happens, it's a choice. Whether
Mm,
it's our mindset, like I'm going to choose not to do this. Okay, well, this is going to be the outcome. It is always like they say, like cause and effect, right? So our
mm.
choice is the cause, and then the effect is what comes from it. So.
Right. And another amazing thing, another great thing you talked about in that lovely soliloquy was, time. Time is one of our most valuable assets, right?
Hmm.
And when you become a family man, as you are now, you start to realize that as kids get older, and then the value of time that's spent and invested, and how to manage that time across everything that's important in your life, from the family to the business to everything that you're creating and building,
That's right.
um and how to really spend that time. What book did I just read not too long ago? I know the one that you mentioned, Seven Highly Effective People, is good.
Hmm.
And then, going to the relationship thing, your boy, Ryan gave me the book, the Way to the Superior Man, I believe it is,
Yeah.
as a good read. I still got to go through and read it one more time,
Hmm.
but there was some good nuggets in there. Oh, and then another one that I got, not from Ryan, but somebody else, Love Languages, right?
Yep,
Uh,
the 5 love languages. That's a great book. That's a
it's a
great book.
great book because you know we all have different ways we like to communicate, and I found this even so in non-romantic relationships. Like, if you're managing people,
Hmm.
how people like to be thanked, or gratitude as far as communication. Like, some people is like, in private, some people like, show me that you appreciate me by, when I do something great, like,
Right.
announce it to the whole group, the
Hmm.
team, just to
Yep.
highlight me.
That's
And
right.
then other people are like, you know what? If you really appreciate me, give me the next big project.
Yep.
Put me on this next big project to show me
Hmm.
that you appreciate me. And so I found it that book not only applies to, romantically, but there's some aspects of it that I saw in leadership development, that and just, building up,
Right.
your business, your clientele, your people, how you talk to your kids, and so forth. So, another great book. So,
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. No, it
um,
is.
yeah. So, let's go here. What's some advice that you would give to someone who would like to start a career in your industry, become that business engineer like you, especially when you're thinking about your story. I know somebody's going to be inspired, impacted by it.
Mhm.
What would you say to that young man coming out of high school, that young girl who's in college right now trying to figure it out, or maybe somebody who's in their career trying to make a pivot? What would you say was advice you would give to them on how to start a career in your industry?
Man, for sure, just go for it, man. Like I want to definitely advise taking action. Like
Mm,
I would say just take action. Like I know we hear it all the time, but like literally taking action. And sometimes it doesn't have to be big. You know what I mean? Like, oh man,
mhm,
I'm about to do all this and that. I gotta go for that. That big hit, that big home run. It's like no. Sometimes you just gotta start with the first base. You know what I mean? Just writing it down. And like with me, like I just knew my actions always spoke louder than my words. Like I would never want to talk about it. I would like to show you, right? Like let me just show you what I'm doing,
mhm,
right? And even with like, okay, want to be like a computer engineer, computer scientist and stuff like that. Like I would, one of the things that I learned that I would definitely advise for people is to not be afraid to make a mistake, because I
mm,
thought like making mistakes was the worst thing you could do. Your whole career will go away and all that stuff. And then I learned that through engineering was like you're supposed to make mistakes. You're supposed to
mhm.
find out what's wrong. Because if everything
Yeah.
is good, something is wrong, which is kind of the opposite, right? You want everything to be good, but no, when everything's good, it's wrong. It's like, no, you want everything to be wrong so it can become good. So that kind of that's a twist to me, and it took a while to learn that. Like, wow, I'm not supposed to make mistakes. I'm supposed to make it better, improve upon, right? Make different versions and stuff like that. And
Uh-huh.
but you have to go for it. You have to test it out. You have to see what comes of it. You can't just be thinking about it and fantasize about it and dream about it. Like, oh, maybe one day. No, like make it real, make it effective. Like just do it. And once you do
Mhm.
it, then you have something to talk about. Then you have
Yeah.
something to show, then you have
Yeah.
experience. And I think one of the things that a lot of us can have in common is we value people's experiences. We value what people show and can tell you,
Mhm.
right? Like I can wholeheartedly tell you just through my experience, okay, this is how I've done it. But that doesn't mean that it can
Yeah.
always apply to you either, you know? But
Yeah.
just try it out, just test it out. And then another thing that I would advise is I'm a big believer like check boxes, right? Checking the box, like, okay, I just got to do this, that. To make things simple, just write down three things, even on your phone, since we're always on our phones,
Mhm.
write down in our little notes three things that you want to accomplish today. Just
Mhm.
three things, just three things. And it could be applied to one area each in your life. It could be your love life, it could be your personal life, it can be your career and business, right? So in your love life, you're like, you know what, today I want to text my spouse, say I love you. Cool.
Mhm.
My personal life, okay, I want to go for a walk for 20 minutes, right? Then my
Yeah.
business is like, okay, today I want to talk to my boss and tell them, of a situation that's happened on at work.
Yeah.
Those are three things, right? And then it may happen that day or it may happen 2 days later, but at least you wrote it down and it became real. It's like, wow, I
Yeah.
wrote this down. Now it has to happen. So
Yeah.
just start
Now,
small.
do you believe the do you because do you believe writing things down makes it real and allows you? I don't know if you believe in manifestation, but allows you to start to manifest or at least work towards something. Like, are you a big believer in that?
I believe in it because it like really manifestation, right? Manifest destiny, right? Like when
Uh
you
huh.
write it down, when you visually see things, like visual, like we're think about it, we're all, you know, visual people, right? For those that can see and even those that can't see, right? Who are blind, like
Hmm.
they can still visually see because our minds it helps us create these thoughts and these visions, right? So
Hmm.
what we truly believe in, it can become. It really can become. I really believe in that. Like, speak things into existence. I really believe in that. Now, I think what we
Hmm.
get caught up on is the time frame of when we want it to happen.
Yeah.
That part that I think we need to become realistic. It's like, man, when will it really happen? But it can
Hmm.
happen. You know what I mean? Even a story with my sister, right? Love her to death. Her name's Dajane. I call her Nene.
Hmm.
And with her, I know that's so funny, Nene. But yeah, with her, her biggest dream growing up was to work for Disney. Disney, the Disney, the
Yeah.
company. And now she's actually worked for Disney. I mean, but her story, I mean, is a whole way of how she got there. But she's in her
Right.
mid 30s, and that's what I mean. Like she had that thought in her head back when she was at least 5 years old. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like she still got to her goal, but she always stuck with it. And I think if we apply to that, sometimes it may not happen tomorrow or 10 days from now. It may happen 30 years from now to become a millionaire, a billionaire, or
Hmm.
whatever it is that we aspire to be. It can't happen,
Right.
but we have to believe in it. We have to speak it to existence.
Oh, so now that you dropped that gem, you gotta introduce me to your sister so that I can get that story because they gonna want to hear Nene's story now.
Right, 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 right. Hey, look, hey, if she wants to say her story, right? Because she might be like, "Oh, I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
know,
true,
I can't
true,
give out
true.
my goods." Like, hey, look, man, I got a favorite ass. You know what I mean? Like, people gotta know what you about, man, because she killing it right now. So, yeah,
Look, I appreciate that. I always tell people, your story is a gift for somebody else. So, although you're holding it on for your dear self and heart, it's that story is going to help inspire somebody else, the next generation. So, I tell them to think about that before they keep it all to themselves.
all right,
Um, and going back to something that you were saying about the process, sometimes I think you have to be patient with the process too, right?
yes,
Because
absolutely,
we sometimes we want it to all happen, then we might have a timeline, but that may not be God's timeline. So
hmm
he like I'm gonna move that obstacle when it needs to be moved. But right now you need to learn this process and this process, so you can't skip a step. So
yep,
I'm gonna need you to fall in line. My not my granddaddy. I think my auntie used to say this like you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans.
yeah, oh yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, that is. It's so true because it's like it's all in God's plan. Like if you it doesn't matter what we what we say is gonna happen. It's in His plan. What's gonna happen. So yeah, that's so funny. Or
It's like,
or
yeah,
another one with Mike Tyson. Right, everybody has a plan to get punched in the mouth. Right, and
yeah.
and he would knock him out. Man, he's like, man, I'm gonna do this to Mike. And bam, KO'd in the first 10 seconds. And it's like, wow, like so. But it's good to have a plan, right? Because then
Yeah,
at least you know what you're trying to accomplish at the end, right? Just like a finish,
right,
just like a race. It's like, man, I know there's a finish line at the end, but I don't know how I'm gonna
right.
get there. But I just see the end goal right there. So yeah,
Thanks for segueing back that. We're not saying not to have a plan. You
no,
always need to have a plan, and it's good to have a plan, but be understandable that sometimes you need to pivot and be patient with the process of that plan,
hmm
and knowing when to, all right, this doesn't seem to be working, so let me figure out how I go around this way because there's a lesson in that that's going to get you to the next stage of where you need to be in your development, business, career, whatever
hmm
it may be.
yep.
I love the three things when you talked about the three things. So I'm gonna present this next question as what are three things that you have done to be successful in your business engineering career?
Three things that I've done. Oh man, what are the three things? Yeah, just so with my business, I would say I again I'm gonna go back to just managing myself, right? Just
Mm,
managing myself because we can't control things that are outside of our control, but we can control ourselves. We can control our emotions. So I would say one of the
mm,
biggest things is my emotional intelligence. I think I've
mm,
definitely mastered my own emotions because, at one time in my life, I was Man, I was a hothead, right? Like when I get mad, like yeah, shout out to Dragon Ball Z, man. Like I would literally believe that, like, man, you'd be so mad, like about to go into a Super Saiyan and punch through walls and do Kamehamehas and all that stuff. And man, I just didn't know how to control myself, right? I was just letting my emotions just get the best of me, right? And just go for it. And it was just crazy. I was like, man, and then then again, right? Like even in my 20s and stuff, like in college, like I just didn't know how to manage my emotions, right? Or how to control that. And one of the books that I'm gonna drop another book. Nobody knows about this one. It's called How to Stop Hurting the People Who Love You. How to Stop Hurting the People
Mm,
Who Love You.
that's a
And
that
now
that
this is
that 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 cover just says it all right there.
yeah. I mean that book, man, that transformed me and my emotions because a lot of the things it talks about in that book is by a philosopher, a psychologist and stuff, and this Dr. Williams. It's on Amazon. I gotta look it up, but this
Okay.
guy, and shout out to Grady for introducing that to me too, was he was in that book it talks about all these just toxic situations that was happening with people, right? And he would sit down and counsel
Mhm,
them through therapy and stuff like that. It's like, what is it, why did you act that way? And again, we go back to not being responsible. When we're not controlling our emotions, we're pretty much relieving our responsibility of what happens next, right?
mhm,
And that part, and then again, it goes back to our perception, how we see the
mhm,
situation, right? How we feel about the situation, because how we feel about the situation is how we're going to act. And that
mhm,
book really broke down a lot of things, like technically, of how to reconstruct our mindset to control our emotions, to not have the worst
yeah,
outcome, getting put in jail, or being in a domestic case, or whatever the problem may be. It can be extreme, but we're in
mhm,
control of that, right? And
mhm,
so yeah, so I would say the biggest step in my business career is my emotional intelligence.
mhm,
I feel like I'm really good at that. I'm controlling my own emotions. And then once I can control my own
mhm,
emotions, then I can be able to speak and persuade people, in order to, accomplish things. Right. So that's one of the
right,
biggest one is controlling my emotions. The second one
yeah,
is definitely going back to time management. And you know, I'm going to
mhm,
speak homage to again to the Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, of just saying that we don't have enough time for anything, and time has always been I don't know. It's always been a huge impact on my life because
mhm,
even with books, right? Like the Bible and Ecclesiastics, it talks about, there's a time for everything, a time of the season, a time to live, a time to die, all that different. I don't know. I'm just really obsessed with time for some reason. I don't know. Maybe because it's futuristic too, right? It's like you can go back in time, like
yeah,
in the future and future, or, past, present, uh, future, right? And so, I would read that book, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, and it talks about how there's 24 hours in a day and how we can construct different times, to make sure that we have enough time to do what we want. But
yeah.
another book, which is what I've been reading, oh man, it's called No BS, and Time Management for Entrepreneurs. I got to send you a link to that one. I learned about that
Okay.
book through from these brothers, Earn Your Leisure. So they're a great.
Oh, I love the shout out to the guys. Earn Your Leisure. They killing it. They inspire me every day too.
Yeah,
So
earn your leisure. They were dropping some gems in one episode, and Ian Dunlap, the master investor, he dropped that book of
yeah,
no BS holds bar, for time management for entrepreneurs, and I've downloaded that book literally like a couple months ago. Man,
mhm,
that book, I mean, it's really like it's like on steroids with time. Like, man, like don't worry about these people, taking use of your time, right? And then not only that,
yeah,
but how to be effective of our time. So Seven
mhm,
Habits of Highly Effective People and No Holds Bar BS, for time management. I forgot who it was by. And then the next thing that I would say of my business is being resourceful. It's okay not to be able to do it all. You know, like one was Brian would always say, and then and I'm forgetting names right now, but he would say like solo entrepreneur. There's no such thing as being a solo entrepreneur. You know, you have to
Mm-hmm.
be able to be resourceful and to let people, you know, do the things that, you know, we may not want to admit that we're not good at, right? So like I know for
Yeah.
myself, I'm really good at like marketing stuff. I'm really good at putting the word out there and stuff like that. But like creating, you know, like the flyers and stuff like that, I may have a you know, a look for it, but I'm not the best at it. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
you know, so I know people that are really great. Even like my wife, you know, Elizabeth, like she's really great at marketing. She's really great at like, you know, having a cue for like grabbing people's
Mm-hmm.
attention, you know,
Yeah.
and you know, you just have to lean on people like that because they see the vision of what you're trying to create and they can enhance that.
Yeah.
So it's okay to be resourceful and not being the hero
Yeah,
or
yeah.
shiro.
Nobody succeeds alone.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to the Justice Sotomayor. That's one of her famous lines that nobody succeeds alone. So, even if you think you're a solopreneur, you will need some help, right?
Yep.
Especially if you want to reach new heights.
Mm-hmm.
Or else you're going to be pigeonholed. So I love that. So we got emotional intelligence, time management, and resourcefulness. I feel like those are key attributes for anything that could be great attributes for anything you want to accomplish in
Yeah,
life. Thank you
absolutely.
so much for sharing that with us, and I'm definitely going to check out these books. No BS time management and some other ones. You have to send me the links to those so I
Yep.
could share it with the viewers as well. Um, Let me think here. Uh, I would have never guessed that you had a little Dragon Ball Z temper rage to you because you're always so calm, cool, collective. So I was like, wait, what? No, not Jayton, really?
Right.
and
Right.
then I'm also thinking like because we both know Ryan. I was like, how did him and Ryan have calm conversations there? Because Ryan could be a little hothead too and stubborn at times. Like,
Right. And it's funny too. Even people, you know, people even say like Jay, like because okay, and another gym too, right? Like even going through my San Diego State days, like I used to party like crazy, man, like crazy, and that's probably one of the reasons why I didn't do so well, right? Because you know I was
yeah,
going through it, you know, broke up with my ex, and then I was like, you know what, I'm about to go on campus and start partying, you know, and I learned how to party, you know what I mean, and that part right there, I was just like, man, what am I doing to myself? You know what I mean? But I think, but it was
yeah,
funny because, like I said, you just never know what life will take you, right? Because while I was
uh-huh.
learning how to like throw parties and stuff like that, I learned how to throw events. You know what I mean? Because think about it,
Uh-huh.
like throwing a party is throwing an event. You're marketing what the event is. You're talking to people. You're
Uh-huh.
hitting them up. You're bringing them there, and then you have it. Then you have a recap, and then they ask you when's the next one. It's the same thing. It could be a convention, it could be a mixer. And I think that's why I've been doing pretty well on that aspect because, you know, I learned just through, you know, being deconstructive, right? Like partying and doing whatever to my
Yeah,
body and whatever, but I made it constructive because now I'm teaching people about entrepreneurship, how to get a job, you know, how
yeah.
to grow it within yourself. So you just never know how you use it.
Well,
And I don't think I've ever shared that with people before, but that's a little secret.
yeah, but I can see that. I can see that, and that makes that's another testament to why you are the person for this. Um, Now, what do you think the future has in store for your industry, especially when it comes to Black engineers? Being at that NSBE event, I was inspired to hear how people see the future. But give me your take on it. How do you see the future for Black engineers in your industry?
Man, for black engineers, you know, I see the future. It can get pretty scary, man. And what I mean by
Mm,
that is that, you know, I think that's why I always prepare myself what's to come. And what I mean by
mm,
that, as we can tell, like right now, we're in year 2022, right? We're in the future, y'all. Like we're in it. We're talking. You know, I was watching iRobot last night, right? Even though I fell asleep on it,
mm.
but it that movie was talking about 2035. I mean, we're like 13 years away from that. Talking about all these robots walking down the street, delivering stuff. I mean, we're technically in that phase right now. But just the future as far as with technology, like it's gonna continue in advancing. It's gonna continue in advancing. Like we thought the pandemic was bad, but man, it made it really well for the future in technology. And what I mean by that is
Mm-hmm.
as far as like artificial intelligence, right? Like computers able to calculate all kind of diagrams and algorithms and stuff to perform
Mm-hmm.
things. I also see it as like automation, right? To be able to automate things, just
Mm-hmm.
with our text messages, just with even with like I got a reminder today, right? Like, hey Jay, you're about to have a meeting with so and stuff like that, right? Our automation with our life, like, is about to be
Mm-hmm.
crazy. And then even in like the defense industry, you know what I mean? Like with that, I can't stress
Mm-hmm.
enough with like
Mm-hmm.
cybersecurity, like that. We're always going to need to secure, the infrastructures, securing infrastructures, because that's where all the jewels and secrets, the money's at. I mean, the information,
Mm-hmm.
like information, is very like valuable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if anybody can have access, just like information right now that we're sharing with y'all, information is valuable. Why do you think back in the day, back in the 18th, 17th century, when we, as Black people, we weren't able to read, write, because having that information, it gave us an advantage. You know what I mean? To be
Mm-hmm.
able to not be in the predicament that we're in. So
Mm-hmm.
information is out there, but now it's acting upon that information. And I see the future in that regards is, we just have to act on the information, because if we don't act upon the information, if we don't engage in these conversations, we will continue to be left behind. We will continue to be, not even in the middle class anymore. We'll be in the lowest class you can think of, as one of the biggest nations out here in the world. And we just have to be prepared, man. We have to be prepared. And we always have to know when the opportunities are there or when they're not there. Maybe not, man, the opportunity may not be there for us right now, but it may be for somebody else, to help lead us, or help lead yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
but I do see the future in that. Like, it's just gonna get more technical, as we're entering, we were just talking about like NFTs, which stands for, non-fungible tokens, and
Mm-hmm.
or the metaverse, you know what I mean? Just another way of the matrix, with putting on some VR
Mm-hmm.
headsets and seeing ourselves virtually, right? Like, I see that, man. Like, we're in it. Like, we are living the matrix. We are living Ready Player One. We are living a lot of these things. And
Yeah.
but we have to be engaged in conversation. We can't be blindsided anymore. We just cannot be
Mm-hmm.
blindsided anymore. We just have to know what's going on. And yeah, that's why I see it
Yeah,
though in the
because the
future.
information's out there. There's
Yeah,
groups out there like NSBE, so get involved.
right.
Wherever you see yourself fitting in. With that being said, what me and you, we could probably talk all day, brother. But I try to keep it in, what used to be a dry time frame of conversation for
Right,
folks to listen
man,
to.
that part.
So tell the people this: what projects are you currently working on, and where can people find you?
Yeah, so right now, which is, so shout out to the business that I co-founded with my mom. Matter of fact, it's called Zero to Necessary. So you have to spell it out, Zero to Necessary. And
Yes.
yeah, my mom, she coined that one, man. So shout out to her back in 2018. And she was talking to my aunt. She's like, sometimes you got to go from zero to necessary. And my aunt was like, Donna, that's a great term. Never heard of that before. And so my mom told me about it. And I was like, Mom, let's make that into a business. Let's trademark this, right? Because zero to
Yeah.
necessary, it can apply to anything and to anybody. And so one of
Uh,
the projects that we're working on right now with zero to necessary is a couple of things. One is a robotics program, right?
uh,
So we actually did that during the pandemic. Was teaching kids, between the ages of 5 to 17, how to build their first
mhm.
robot. Because as like I was saying with iRobot, right? We got to understand like how this
Yeah.
technology works with with the software, the hardware, and if we can start young, that's going to project us into the right direction as far as this technology goes. So we're doing a robotics
Mhm.
program in the summer, because obviously COVID's going around right now like crazy. So we're looking
Yeah.
into that. We're also another project is what we're going to be doing is a hackathon, right? Which the
Mm-hmm.
hackathon is just another way to get together, produce a product, and it only takes like one day, maybe a couple days, and you pitch it in front of your colleagues or peers. So we're going to do a basketball hackathon later this year. Um, because when it comes to sports, right, going back to zero to necessary, we have to think about the mind of an athlete. Like, what is it that they do
Mm-hmm.
to go from zero to necessary? So that's a new trend that what we're trying to do. I mean, it's not really a new trend, but it's a new segment in our business, which is sports, right? With our
Mm-hmm.
mindset, our health and well being, and with athletes.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to be able to tie that in with technology, right? So we want to do a hackathon later this year. We're going to do that with my wife's a nonprofit organization, Black Tech Link, and
Mm-hmm.
so that's some of the things that we have coming down the pipeline right now. I'm not about to create an NFT as far as I know, but but I am going to put on an event next month. It's called Leveraging Sports Franchising, and
Nice.
no, yeah, Leveraging Sports Franchise. Oh man, what is? Oh man, I'm forgetting the term, but it's talking about sport franchising and the metaverse,
Uh,
right? And
okay.
how as things are about to becoming more and more digital, what does that look for
Uh-huh.
sports? Is all of a sudden, I don't know if you guys heard, but with Nike, like they're owning rights in the metaverse, which is crazy to
Yeah.
think about, like digital art. You know what I mean? Like patenting like that's deep, y'all. When Nike and Adidas is thinking about that, we should really be paying attention of, what is it that we can create in this digital world. So we're going to talk about that next month on February 9th. And, especially for Black History, because we are
Mm-hmm.
creators. We are, the people that, really formed this world. And so yeah. But then as far as what NSBE goes, right? So shout out to NSBE because I'm the president and the chair for the San Diego chapter professionals. We have a STEM gala coming up. It's going to be on February 26th at the Hanlery Hotel, and it's over in Mission Valley. And we're paying homage to Black Wall Street for Black Wall Street, and because over 100 years ago, as we know, it was burnt down through racism, through
Mm-hmm.
jealousy, and we want to pay homage to that because of the fact of during businesses, again, there's engineers, right? Engineers were there. They were there to help create the city, help create the banks, help create, businesses, right? And so we're just commemorating for those that was lost during that time. We're going to be giving out awards. We're going to be highlighting our members and our community partners who's been a part of NSBE and whatnot. So I really encourage people to attend that event. It's gonna be beautiful, man. I mean, us, we love to dress up, right? We love to
Yeah.
show out. So so the theme is in the 1920s. You know what I mean? To dress apart, and so come through. Right now, I think tickets are like $90, but I mean, it's gonna be one of the best experiences you ever have, and to see us in excellence as always. So I'm
Woo!
preparing
Can't
that.
wait. Can't wait.
Yeah. So with NSBE, so definitely coming up with that. And then last but not least with NSBE is the national convention, which is going to be actually out here in Southern California, Anaheim. So it's going
Mm-hmm.
to be March 23rd through the 27th. So I'm trying to get as many NSBE members to come to that because like how it impacted me, I've seen,
Mm-hmm.
so many gifted young Black folks out here winning and doing the thing. I mean, yes, it is COVID right now, but it doesn't matter. Like we're still doing it, y'all. It is going to be a hybrid event. So some is going to be in person, the others going to be online. But man, I just really encourage everybody um, to attend the NSBE convention. And
Mm-hmm.
depending on if you're a collegiate student or a professional, depends on the prices. But if you go to nesbe.org, it's going to have all the information there. So yeah, shout out to NSBE, man. But yeah, that's some of the projects that I have coming up, short term and long term. But as far as reaching out to me, you can look at Zero to Necessary, which is
Mm-hmm.
www.zerotonecessary.com. You want to find me on Instagram. I'm the only Jayton Harps out there. I swear, you guys. There's a lot of Jaytons. There's a lot of Harps. but there's only one Jayton Harps. I'm the only one,
D.
the Jayton Harps. I kid you not, you guys. If you write up my name, I am the only one that shows up. Okay, so I am not hard to find. So you can look me up on Instagram. You can look me up on Twitter. You can look me up on LinkedIn for sure, LinkedIn and Facebook. I'm on all those platforms. So just holler at me, and I'll do my best to get back to you.
Yeah, and don't worry if you didn't write all of that down. I'm gonna get Jayton to give me all of them links to every single thing, website, events, because my guy has a lot going on, and I want to make sure you stay tuned, stay connected, and get interjected into this community if you about this engineering life. Jayton, thank you so much for coming on today, sharing your knowledge, your wisdom, your story with us. I greatly appreciate you. I hope that I can repay the favor someday. When you sitting in that big seat, wherever organizations you're invested in and overseeing,
Mhm.
and you got the $100 million coming in. Hopefully, I could, pay you back in some way.
Man, nah, I'm honestly this is the best gift you could have asked for me, man. Is just to be on your podcast because I was really thinking about that. I was like, man, dude, like I haven't really been on any like talks or anything like that. And when you told me about this, I was like, man, I'm on it, man. Like let's do it. You know what I mean? I was like, let's do it on this day specifically too, because man, it's
Yeah,
gonna be
I
deep.
couldn't even
It's gonna
think
be
of a
deep.
better day. Mine had a dream, Jayton had a dream, and it's zero to give it to him one more time.
Zero to necessary.
Real quick. We go zero to necessary real quick. Real quick. Real quick. That's the dad side of me. I do these dad jokes every once in a while. So yeah, I gotta just get used to it.
Oh man, that is so funny, man. Too
All
funny.
right. Jay, and take us out. Any last words for the people?
Oh man, just stay healthy and well, y'all. Just continue to do that, and man, it's okay, man. It's okay. Everything's gonna work out. Whatever you're going through, think of it as an opportunity to excel and to rise.
And there you go. From Jayton Hart himself. It's an opportunity to excel and to rise. I like what you did there.
Mhm.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Rise Urban Nation, and we'll see you next time.